Nebraska Arts Council Board. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meeting Act is available for audience members. Additionally, there is a copy of the reproduction written material that will be discussed available for examination and copying by members of the public pursuant to the provisions of the Open Meeting Act. Well, welcome everybody. It's so good to see you all. Let's start with roll call.
All right. Sherry Hofshar.
Here.
Ryan Botsford.
Here.
There he is. Thank you. Zachary Cheek.
Here.
Brenda Davis.
Here.
Michelle Dudley.
Here.
And Crystal Dunning.
Here.
Anna Goranson.
Here.
Alec Gorinsky.
Here.
Amy Haddad.
Here.
Karen Harris.
She's here.
She's here. Yeah, she's here. Ellen Hornady is not here. Mark Laughlin.
Here.
Sarah Peets.
Here.
Clark Roush.
Here.
Wally Seiler. Not here. Thank you.
Okay, you've all had a chance to glance at the agenda. If there are any questions or additions to it, otherwise I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Sarah. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Clark. Go ahead.
Okay. Hofshar.
Yes.
Botsford.
I don't know. Yes.
Peak.
Sorry, yes, me. Yes, sorry, I heard Pete's.
Davis.
Yes.
Dudley.
Yes.
Dunning.
Yes.
Sorensen.
Yes.
Gorinsky.
Yes.
Haddad.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
No, but I
now
can see
we
you, so that's good.
Yeah, we can now.
Thank you. Hornady.
It was either yes or touchdown.
Laughlin.
Yeah. Yes.
Peets.
Yes.
Yes.
And Seiler. Thank you.
Okay, we have some special guests for oral communications. We'll start with the Nebraska Cultural Endowment. Is Maggie here?
Has Maggie come on yet?
I'm here. Hi.
Very good.
It's all yours, Maggie.
Oh, thank you. I'm first. Hi, everyone. Mike is going to cover off on some important financial distribution details about the endowment, what our board has approved for the Arts Council to get in terms of our yearly distribution. So I won't cover that because he will be touching on that in his financial report. So I'm just here to talk very briefly with you about the Cultural Endowment's 25th anniversary celebration that is going to take place on March 18th. We did have all of you, I believe, on our Save the Date mailing list. So hopefully you all got a card in the mail, and our official invitations will be coming out the first week in April. We are currently fundraising for sponsorships for the event, which is going very, very well. But if anybody is interested in doing so, you can feel free to reach out to me. We are planning on hosting United States Poet Laureate Ada Limon at the Holland Center. She will be performing a program and then having a conversation with Nebraska Poet Laureate Matt Mason. And there will be a patron reception prior to the program, which everyone is also very, very welcome to purchase tickets to, which is going to be lovely. It'll be at the Scott Recital Hall right next to the auditorium. And it's going to be a wonderful event. And the purpose of the event is definitely to celebrate the 25 years of the Cultural Endowment and all of the money we've raised and then invested and distributed to the Arts Council and Humanities Nebraska. So we're very excited for the event, and we're hoping that not only will those of you who know us well will be there, but that we'll also be able to attract some new folks that maybe don't know that much about the endowment and have them come and be a part of that celebration, and then hopefully bring them in closer and continue that engagement after the event. So just mark your calendars for May 18th. And we look forward to seeing you all there. And I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any, but that was really all I was reporting on today.
Questions? I just comment too that we need to thank Amy Haddad because Ada was, she helped in getting her because Ada was your academic advisor, mentor. And so, you know, we've got a particular part in that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, Sherry. Also, Amy and her husband, Steve, are our honorary chairs of the event, and Amy will be introducing Ada. So they're a big, big part of this celebration. So we're very excited about that. And I don't know if it was mentioned, but Amy is actually going to be the vice, or actually is currently the vice president of the Cultural Endowment. And we're very, very happy to have her in that position. So, so Amy has been very, very involved with the endowment, and I'm excited to have her in a leadership position now. So thank you, Amy. Yeah.
Sorry, our screen has gone nuts on us here. There we go.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Next up, Nebraskans for the Arts. Petra?
Hi, it's good to see everyone. Mike, am I able to share a few slides, or do you prefer that I just talk? I'm good either way.
You can share slides.
Wonderful. I'm just gonna quickly. There, can you see it?
Yes.
Mhm.
Awesome, thank you. Just have a few things I wanted to report on. We have had a hearing already for one of the bills that we are particularly watching this legislative session. It's LB 605, which last session was 325. It's the art therapy bill. Really excited that Senator Albright wanted to introduce that again. And we have the committee hearing on February 23rd, and we had no opposition. So we're that's really good. And now we're hoping to Christmas tree it with some other non-controversial bills, and hopefully they can go on the floor and be voted on together. And we're really hoping that this is our year for this bill that's been 4 or 5 years that we've worked on it. So fingers crossed for that, but so far so good. This is our, we had our Arts Advocacy Day in person for the first time since before the pandemic. So pretty excited. And even with the snowstorm the day before, you can see that we had a great turnout. We were in Ashland, our first certified creative district, and had a wonderful time together. People, I think, really appreciated the opportunity to network and get together. We had someone as far as Sydney coming, even with the snow, and also to tour the creative district and get kind of inspired that way. And something that I was actually surprising to me, but made me really happy, was some of the feedback that we had about the learning more about the legislative process, because sometimes you don't really know if everyone knows it already and it's really, you know, too simple for them, or, you know, which kind of level to strike in these when you have people from all over. So I was really happy. I pulled out a few quotes here because I thought that was really great, that people felt like, oh, it's a lot easier than I thought to connect with senators and the process. And so I just thought I'd share that with you, because I think at the end of the day, when we have these times together, we really want people to feel empowered to be even better advocates for us, for our sector. And it seemed like we were able to empower people to feel like the process wasn't complicated and that it was easier than they thought. So now we are on to our senator meetings, because of course this was a time for all of us to meet, and now constituents from each district will be meeting on Zoom with their senator to encourage them to vote for 605 when it goes on the floor, and talk about other things that are important to them in their district. I'm happy to take any questions.
And Petra, if a council member would like to be involved in that, in those meetings, they're perfectly welcome to as well, right?
100%. Everyone is welcome, and you didn't have to be at that event to be part of it. And many people will be part of the senator meetings who couldn't make it in person. So it is open to everyone. It's never too late to get involved. You can just send me an email and I'll include you. We're working with the senators right now to line up kind of those meetings based on their availability.
Amy,
Amy, did you have a question?
I do. Petra, this is maybe broader than my very specific question. What's the status of the bill about the anti-drag?
371.
Yeah,
Yes, it is been referred to the committee, but no committee hearing has been set. And we are watching that one very closely, and we're in touch with other organizations as well. So right now we are waiting for that hearing, because until we have a hearing date, we can't really line up anyone to testify, because of course we won't know if they'll be available. And then we can also ensure once the hearing date is set, people can start submitting online testimony as well. So we're right now just waiting and we're of course in touch with other states on a national level. Everyone's keeping us updated on what's happening in other states as well.
okay. So I don't know if I updated my membership, so maybe if I did, I would know the answer to this. Do you keep us abreast on where these sorts of bills are at, what kind of impact they have on the state beyond just maybe the personal, but economic and other things? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't talked too much about 371 yet, because I first went through a kind of internal process with our board, and then we're waiting for that hearing. But we have talking points prepped so that people can see, like you said, everyone has a personal attachment to bills, but also how bills could potentially affect our creative sector in ways that people may not have thought about. So we do have all that kind of ready to go, just waiting to hear about that hearing date, and have been in touch with Senator Hunt as well, who's filed several amendments to that bill. So we are right now, that's where we are.
Okay, thank you.
And just so you all know, we'll also be watching it very carefully as the bill is currently written. If an 18-year-old goes to see a production of 12th Night, we could get in trouble.
Yeah, or Peter Pan.
Yeah, or Peter Pan. That's funded by the Arts Council if that were to happen. So we're watching it. We don't anticipate that it's going to be in that form by the time it's done, but as it's currently written, it is. So we'll be watching it carefully, and we'll let you guys know if there's any changes to that.
Well, and also, and we'll be talking about that later, the position for creative districts for the Arts Council is something that's part of the budget. That is good that anybody in our council that wants to be sure to bring that up in part of their meetings with senators.
Yeah.
Hey, Petra, would you give us a couple minutes on how your public policy agenda setting happens? And what role, if any, governance or members play in that? I'm appreciative of the bills that you've been speaking about in your advocacy in support or opposition, as it were. Just a little bit on how the, I don't know, laws and sausage are made in your technical words.
It's a good question, because it's actually something we've been looking at internally as well, because of course it's not just to my discretion to say like, oh, we should, champion these bills, or we should oppose this bill. It's not for me to say, as I'm the steward of the organization, but it's not, that I'm the person who decides that. So for our art therapy bill, of course, that one is easy, and since it actually originated with our office and art therapists who contacted us, and so we've been working with them through the whole process. So of course, that's because they came to us to partner on this bill, and then we found the senator. So that one, and that's of course a way when constituents come to us and we work together on a bill. More commonly, the bills pop up and we react to them because we don't exactly know, what's going to come up in the legislative process. So we have an internal process where I send out my recommendation to the board, and then we do a voting process to make sure that people on our board, that we're all kind of in alignment of how our official position is going to be on the bill. And the bills that we usually, of course, I watch them as they come out to see which ones are going to have an effect on our sector, but also when constituents come to us, which of course has been the case with 371, that we get people to contact the office directly and say, will you please, we're really concerned. In this case, people have contacted me with concern and said that this has been something that they're really worried about, and that they would really like our organization to help oppose this bill. And so those things together and our internal process then determines kind of which bills we will particularly be active in the session.
Any other questions for Petra? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Uh,
you.
I know Mike wanted to introduce you too, but I'm not sure what he was gonna say. Suzanne called. And so, and she knew we were having the meeting, so that's, you're on if you want to introduce the education people.
Oh, yes, this is Suzanne on the phone. She says to say hi to everybody. Everybody say hi to Suzanne.
Hi, Suzanne.
Hi, Suzanne.
See you later. Bye-bye. Okay. All right, yes, thank you. If you all remember, after our summer retreat last year, we told you that one of the focuses that we would be doing as an agency is really putting a lot of energy into arts education at all levels, lifelong learning. And then if you also remember last fall, we told you that we were anticipating having a lot of extra dollars hanging around that we really needed to do something with because of the lack of projects because of COVID over the last couple of years. And that we would be looking for projects that we could do that would help both of those causes. And to that end, our friends from the Department of Education are here because we've got two projects that will help us, help them, and help art teachers across the state. They're going to tell you about the two different programs that we're developing. And then later on, you have grant applications in front of you that we will ask you to approve so that we can put those programs in motion. Okay. One of the applications, and they'll explain the process, just got approved during the meeting, the State Board of Education meeting on Friday. And that's the reason that we sent out that letter of application on Friday or yesterday for you. So we'll ask you to look at that. And with that, I will turn things over to Cody Tallarico and Marissa Pazant.
Yeah.
Forgive me, from the Department of Education.
All right. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Sherry, for having us today. Like Mike said, my name is Cody Tallarico, and I'm the Fine Arts Education Specialist at the Nebraska Department of Education. And I'm here today with my supervisor, Dr. Marissa Pazant, who is the Director of Content Standards and Assistant Administrator for the Office of Teaching, Learning, and Administration Assessment, rather, and current acting Chief Academic Officer. And so, but we're really excited to be here and talk to you both about the Arts Education Data Project, as well as the Arts Now grant. So the Arts Education Data Project is a national project currently with 31 states. And it takes our publicly reported enrollment and access data and standardizes it and then presents it in a way that we would actually be able to utilize the data that's already being reported in a data visualization dashboard. And it would be reported to us or brought back to us as a publicly available and public facing dashboard that would then be available for any constituency across the state to be able to use. Not only the Nebraska Department of Education, but also Nebraska Arts Council would be able to use that to identify where arts education programming and where there might be barriers in arts enrollment and things like that. So it would help us make decisions moving forward. And it examines the data from multiple perspectives and looks at it from demographics, enrollment, staffing, changes in socioeconomic status, and just through a variety of lenses. And the reason why AEDP is so important is because there's no current mechanism that really provides a clear picture here in Nebraska. We can only, what we know anecdotally through the AEDP, we'll now know empirically. And we really want to be able to use that so we can make data-informed decisions that would help us address barriers and access in arts education or look at enrollment trends. And I've connected with other states who currently are involved in the project, and they have used it in a variety of different ways to help direct their decision-making at a state level, but then also to work with districts to help identify staffing needs or programmatic changes as well. It would also help us to identify factors that are affecting arts education enrollment and the participation and access in arts education, and look at those shifts that are happening and where we can best put our resources. And so that is why we are here asking for funding of $60,000 for the Arts Education Data Project. It is a 3-year commitment. The first year is $30,000, and the company Quadrant Research would then do 5 years of preceding data, and then the next 2 years would be the update, $15,000 each of 2 years, taking us through school year 25-26.
I might just add in that Cody is already working with both Maggie and Petra on similar data collection projects, and they're coordinating that effort so that when it's all put together, we'll have a very clear picture of where arts education is and where it isn't, where advocacy is and isn't, and where the impact on the arts is and isn't throughout the state, so that we can coordinate our efforts and our grant writing efforts as well as our advocacy efforts. So it'll give us, as Cody said, not just anecdotal, but empirical evidence as to where we need to put our resources going forward. So we think it'll be a very important project, not only for the Arts Council, but for all of our partners as well, as just make us all smarter people as we're trying to do this.
Absolutely.
Can I ask a question or should I wait till the end?
Hold on one second, Zachary.
Oh, just to add it, I took this to our Budget and Finance Committee last week at the state board meeting, and they were very excited about it, particularly that this sort of data lets you look at like student achievement relative to access to arts education. And I did communicate to our board that I think as we move along from year to year with this project, with this data visualization, I think that more ways to use it are going to emerge than, you know, what we currently, I think it's just really exciting. Thank you.
And one thing I forgot to mention too, is that we really hope that this will be something that can be in multiple places. I know that sometimes, you know, finding stuff on NDE's website can be kind of buried. And so there's definite potential with being able to put the dashboard in multiple places, whether Arts Council or NAFTA want to house it as well. So that way there are multiple ways for the public and for different groups to be able to see the information and interact with it.
Thank you. Zach, you had a question?
Sure, if that's okay. Thank you both for reading, oh, not here, but like there. Not to be contrarian, because I love the idea and I love what you're doing. And if it's okay that I say, people have said it earlier in a Zoom call, I love you guys for doing this. But my question is, you're saying that this will empirically give us an insight on arts education in the state that we haven't had before. How have we had any semblance of an idea absent this program beforehand, if this makes sense, of where arts education is in the state? How have we gotten a picture without the program before?
So currently, the way that I can access the arts education enrollment data is to make a request through our data research and evaluation team. And then those numbers come back to me in just raw course code numbers. And what I've been able to see is course enrollment. What I haven't been able to see is how that corresponds to student demographics, specifically males versus females, socioeconomic status, and different demographic information as well.
Okay, awesome. It's good to know. Perfect. I was just curious. Thank you. Thank you both for being here again. I appreciate it.
Clark, you had a question?
Yeah, I was, what is the scope of the arts?
Oh, great question. So the arts would include our 4 content areas: visual arts and dance, music, and theater. Our media arts courses moving forward, starting year school year 23-24, will be housed in the visual art course category. So it'll include both of those, even though there's not a separate course category. And then our dance courses are currently housed in health and physical education.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about that project? If not, we'll, yes, Maggie?
I have a question, Mike. I just was curious. I was looking at the PDF you sent, and I did notice on the second page that it made reference to funding by NAC and the cultural endowment. So I was wondering, was there a decision made that some of the funds allocated from the endowment would be going towards this project?
That is a future possibility because it is education has a statewide impact. but it's not part of this particular package.
And Maggie, I think as I was preparing that, I was going off of the grant assurances that Jennifer
Oh,
provided.
I see.
Saying
Yeah.
that everything needed to be recognized for Nebraska Arts Council and Nebraska
Yeah.
Cultural Endowment.
Okay,
Provided a standard assurance and it was involved in that, so.
got it. Okay, terrific. Yeah, and I mean, I have no objection to the funds from the endowment going towards it, because I think I'm all for it, but I just was curious whether that had been a decision that was made or not. Okay, so this is more about acknowledging funding comes from both sources.
Yeah, again, it's part of our standard assurances and it was just attached to it, but it is a possibility down the road because it does serve the purposes of the CPAF funds, so.
Understood. Thank you for clarifying. Oh, Amy?
Yeah, Amy?
Just off the top of your head, since this is only information about K through 12, what percentage of the grants and things go to that population, would you say, from the Arts Council?
Yeah. Jennifer, are you listening in? Could you answer that? Or, Anne, would you hazard to take a guess?
20%, that would be my ballpark, but it's hard to say.
Yeah.
By the time you figure in.
You'd have to also take into consideration school bus grants and things like that as well, so. I don't know, but we could probably find that out for you. It would just take some.
Well,
calculation.
the only reason I bring it up is that this is for a specific population. And so a large population probably, but the idea that we'll have this information about children and young adolescents K through 12. And we don't have that kind of comparable information. I don't know if that's what we're trying to do with what the Cultural Endowment and is trying to work on too. But that's just why I asked. It's for one population that we will get information about that we haven't had in the past.
That's true, yeah.
So it would be nice to know how much of our money goes to that population, because it's another way to justify that we're going to spend this amount of money right now. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. We can find that out for you if you like.
Just something I think we should know. I mean, not before the vote, but just think we should look at that.
Okay. All right, any other questions? All right, you want to go ahead and discuss the second project?
Yes, so when Marissa and Mike and I met with, Marissa and I met with Mike and Suzanne back in October. Mike and Suzanne had talked about the funds that you had received from the NEA. And so had asked us about a project that we could put together that would grant funds to K-12 school districts, and in order to provide arts education projects. And so we're calling that Arts Now. It would definitely be a partnership between Arts Council and the Department of Ed. And it would be for school districts to do partnership or to do arts education projects that lead to artistic excellence and strengthen arts education while implementing Nebraska's fine arts education standards. It would be a significant partnership of $180,000 available dollars for competitive grant projects. And we're currently working through kind of all the parts of how that grant program would work. That is something new for our office at the Nebraska Department of Ed. And so the State Board of Education hasn't acted on this yet, but just to kind of give you a little bit of background as far as what we're doing. The grant program would be open to K-12 public schools at the request of the Arts Council, and Nebraska Arts Council would be recognized as a partner. Part of the grant requirements of telling your arts education story would recognize all funding coming from the Nebraska Department of Education, the Nebraska Arts Council, and through the assurances, the Nebraska Cultural Endowment. The focus of the Arts Now project would be specifically on the impact that it has to schools, and school districts could provide one grant application. It would have a great deal of flexibility as long as the project impacts the overall school's arts education program and helps them to achieve artistic excellence and increases their arts education instruction. Schools may choose to designate single or multiple buildings within their school. And school districts would be eligible to apply for one of 3 different funding tiers based on the impact or the number of students that are served. And one of the requests was that it would be geographically, would be awarded throughout the state with geographic, what's the word?
Region, just clarify.
Dispersed.
Dispersed geographic equitability, that's the word I'm looking for. And and within the Department of Education, we're entering into a new way of doing business called the Coherence Project, and that focuses on our 5 Nebraska multi-tiered systems of support regions. And so we would have amounts that are among the 5 different regions, the same amount for all 5 regions that are geographically dispersed across the state. We're currently working through the processes and procedures. I just sent Anne and Marissa and Jennifer kind of all the particulars to have them look at it, and then we'll send it on to the other offices within the Department of Ed before we place it on the State Board of Education agenda. We're hoping to do that for the April meeting, and then would be able to know if the State Board of Education approves it after their April meeting.
Okay, I'll add that as Cody mentioned, the board needed to act on this, and at the time that we put the packet together, we didn't know if that would make it in time. That's why it's included on the agenda. We will table it for today until they are able to, until the board is able to look at the proposal and take action on it, which we anticipate to be in April. And then at that time, we'll put it to the council and ask you to vote on it and then ratify it at the June committee, at the June meeting. So that, but we'd really like to know that we have the approval to go forward as soon as they get their approval on their end. So we'll put that out to a special vote for you via email, and then we'll have you ratify it at the June committee meeting. That's the plan for it. We had hoped that we would have it by now, but the wheels of government turn slowly sometimes. So that's the status of that.
One thing I didn't mention was the additional year. Is that important? That going through June 2024, doing this allows some availability of those funds for you.
Yeah, that is a benefit of this. It does allow us an extra year, which since these will be federal funds, we're able to use an extra year for them. So that helps out for that. Okay. Any questions about it? And again, we'll be tabling this today, but certainly if you have any questions while we have these nice people here, this would be a good time to ask them. Or me or Ann for that matter. Okay.
Can I just add a little thought?
You bet.
From my perspective, I see both of these projects as not only raising the visibility of the Arts Council as a partner with the Nebraska Department of Education at a level we haven't seen in years and years that I know of. And it also will raise the visibility of the fine arts standards, putting them out there in a very, very precise way, because for instance, with the Arts Now project that Cody just described, part of the grant application involves having the applicants tell us how the art standards are going to be addressed through this project. So I just see it as a win-win for everyone, both of these projects, and I'm really excited about it. So I had to share that.
Well, I think you bring up a good point, going back to what Andy was talking about. We can quantify the amount of grants that goes towards K through 12. But what would be much harder is to speak to the number of programs that we have as an agency that work directly on arts education. That this will help inform, and so I think it's very valuable to keep that in mind. Just the overall scope of everything that we'll be working with. Yes, Melissa?
I was just going to add just one little additional piece, something that the state board committee members really thought was important, that we make sure that we communicate back pretty clearly. I'm talking about the Arts Education Data Project, but it's going to be a theme for this one too. This will be an opportunity to tell lots of great stories about how our Nebraska schools are putting these funds to use. And I think we should be really mindful moving forward about how we're going to tell those stories and who will who will hear the stories. I just think there's a lot of opportunity there. That's what I'm excited about too.
I might mention one other thing, and that is that we had a meeting of the executive directors of the state arts agencies, which I was invited to join. And at that meeting, the chairman of the NEA spoke, and what she spoke about was specifically cross-governmental collaborations, mostly to do with tourism as well as green, but also programs like this. So I think that it's an important focus for the National Endowment for the Arts going forward also, is combining those efforts. And so we seem to be right in line with what they're looking to do. And as Ann said, I think it not only raises our visibility, but that of education, I think, which is so important today. Okay. Any other questions about that? If not, I will thank our nice friends for coming and joining us today.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to approval of the minutes for December 12th meeting. I have one correction under the reports and discussion items, number 10, that when I reported on the number of applications that we had for the executive director, it's not 10 of which are in-state candidates, but it was from 10 different states, is what it needs to be. Does anyone have any other items in the minutes? If not, is there a motion for approval? Somebody wave if you don't. Okay, Mark says, or Zach says aye. Somebody second.
Aye.
Karen, second.
Hi, guys.
Thank
How are
you. Okay, all those in favor, are we gonna do roll call?
I'm afraid so. Hofstra,
Yes.
Botsford,
Oops.
I don't see him. He ran away.
No,
Oh, there he
he's
is.
right there.
Brian, just wave.
Sorry, my
Sure.
my
All right.
unmute didn't work. Yes, yes.
Thank you. Cheek,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Yes.
Dunning,
Yes.
Sorensen,
Yes.
Prinsky,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Hornady, it is not here. Laughlin,
Yes.
Eats,
Yes.
Roush.
I'm sorry, we have to go through all those one by one, but that's state law, so. Okay, now moving on to the council members and the oath of office. We are welcoming Brian again. He was at our emergency meeting back in January, but we welcome you, Brian, and I hear you have a hearing on your confirmation hearing on Monday. So
I do, yes.
yes, it's not a problem, as some of us can attest to. Just tell them who you are and why you want to do it, and you may or may not get questions. But now we all need to, with Brenda, Michelle, Mark, and I being being reappointed, and with Brian being appointed, we all need to take the oath of office. So Mike is pulling it up on the screen.
Well, we weren't having any luck opening this earlier, so I'm trying to see if we can get it to open now. The PowerPoint for today's session has been problematic. I should have asked Petra if she would load it. She had no problem at all from her end.
We could probably get one of our staff members who's working from there.
That would be great. Good thought.
Josh.
Yeah, see, this isn't loading at all.
Should I move on? And
Yes, please.
okay, well, they're waiting to see if we can get one of the staff members to load on the oath of office so we can read it instead of just waiting. Let's move on to the financial committee report. Alec?
Yeah, Mike, commentary is not necessary. We all know Mike's great.
Well, and as unfortunately, as you can imagine, the financials are on the slideshow as well. So I guess at the present time, until we can get it working, I will just ask you if you can follow along on the packet. I will be brief because this was a rather simple financial report that the board all looked at, the committee looked at last week. But on tab 2, page 6 of the packet is the state report that comes from the accounting department. And in the year-to-date expenditures, you can see the 4 different programs where the state gives us funds, and the totals are in the red boxes. And then our report is on page 7 of the packet. And you see that our books are formulated just as theirs are, so that you can easily compare the year-to-date expenditures, and that our books match their books, which is always good. So unless there are any questions about those, I'll talk briefly about some of the breakdowns of the different areas of the programs. Okay, on the next page then is the administration breakdown. And you can see on the top of the yellow columns, the year-to-date expenditures, that we are approximately 58% of the way through the year. And so you would anticipate that our expenses be in that neighborhood. And you see that salaries and benefits certainly are. The rest of them vary wildly, sometimes because we have expenses that are coming up in the later part of the year. Some are front-loaded at the beginning of part of the year, like the rent happened to have 1 month that came in right before this report. The one thing that I did want to mention is that travel is so much more, or not travel, staff development and outreach are so much more, because the staff has been able to travel a lot more than they had the last couple of years, having to do with COVID, creative districts, a lot of different things. So that's been a good investment in time. And then the contractual services is so low because we have a lot of projects that'll be coming up here towards the end of the year. Any questions about the administration? If not, I will just mention on grants that they are about where we would expect them to be for the year. The one thing that is not reflected accurately on this report is that the year-to-date expenditures for the creative districts grants, I wanted to call your attention to. To date of this report, we had $40,000 in expenses for the certification grants, the awards, and we had $459,000 in expenses for the development grants. And I just wanted, and Rachel will give you a report later on, but to let you know that currently we have now spent upwards of $790,000 in development grants, and that Rachel assures me that we will be spending all of those funds by the end of the year, which was our goal, was to have all of that appropriation gone by the end of the year. So it looks as though we will be successful at that. Any questions about grants? If not, the final thing I'll tell you is that on the next page, program 329, unfortunately, we have still had no drawdowns. The market is still not doing as well as we would hope. And so you can see that we've had the expenses for the running of the program of $17,762, which is commensurate with what we would expect at this point. The other thing I'll point out to you is over there on the left-hand side, the CPAF balance as of 11/30 was 10.8, and the next line, current CPAF balance as of 12/31, that should actually read 12,000 because the transfer doesn't take place until the next day. So just so that you know that we are currently about $1.1 million underwater on that fund. And that's why, if you remember last time, we discussed the fact that it would appear as though it's going to be a year or two before we are actually able to draw down any funds on that public side of the cultural endowment, because we don't draw down any funds until we are pulling down earnings above the corpus. So we are just holding the line on that until the market turns around and we start to get back up to having a full balance again. Okay. Any questions about program 329? And if not, that's the financial report for this period.
Any questions about any part of the financial report? Or Alec, do you have any other comments?
Unanimously recommended by the Finance Committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Who was that?
That was Mark.
Okay, voice vote.
Okay. Hofstra,
Yes.
Botsford,
Yes.
Peak,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Dudley,
Yes.
Dunning,
Yes.
Lawrenson,
Yes.
Rinsky,
Yes.
Added,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Laughlin,
Yes.
Keats.
Yes.
Yes. All right, thank you.
What should we do about this?
The only other thing I wanted to mention is as Maggie alluded to, the cultural endowment did vote at their most recent meeting, the distribution of the funds on both the public and private side. And I told you at the last time what we anticipated, and that if you remember, the earnings that we had banked, for want of a better term, on the public side in that stability fund was 518,000, and the board voted to distribute half of that this year and half of it next year to help stretch those dollars out, or rather half of it this year, and then look at the distribution of the remainder of it next year. And so the funds going forward for the CPAF funds next year will be $209,000. The other thing they voted on was the distribution of the private side, the earnings on the private dollars that are raised by the cultural endowment. And they voted to have the same distribution as last year. So that will hold the line from last year. And so we were very grateful that knowing that these are tough times, that they are helping out our organizations by distributing that same amount last year. Maggie, is there anything else along those lines that you'd like to add?
Just that we are particularly lucky that although we took a pretty big hit with our earnings in the private fund last year, that it has crawled back significantly over the past few months. And so we, still are a good ways off from ever taking anything out of our corpus, which we wouldn't do anyway. But we did have earnings in that private fund that made it easy. We had a very big discussion in our financial committee meeting about whether to be careful with the funds or to try to go ahead and match what we did last year. And the overwhelming opinion was that the funds are there to support the Arts Council in Humanities Nebraska. And as long as we're not dipping into our corpus and we have the earnings to support it, we really see great value in making sure that there's stability in our funding of both of those organizations as much as possible. And with CPAF taking such a big hit and not having any earnings to pull from, we're very relieved, of course, that we have the stability fund, but that's going to get us through 2 years. So we want to make sure that we are continuing to support heavily through the private fund. And we were very happy to do that. And it passed unanimously. Everybody wants to make sure that the Arts Council is supported.
All right, thank you, Maggie. Any questions about the distribution? Okay, we'll make that part of next time's budget. I see that Joshua has been able to raise the PowerPoint. Joshua, if you wouldn't mind forwarding a few slides. One more time. I lied. One more. Oh, Sherry, you want to talk about the oath of office?
Well, we're ready to do the oath of office if you can get it up there.
One more time. All right, never mind.
Okay, let's just save the oath of office until June, and let's move on to the grants and artist programs. Brenda, looks like you're up with the teaching artist roster. Is there a teaching artist slide on teaching artists?
This is it.
This is it. Okay.
Thank you, Josh.
Okay.
Okay,
Is Brenda?
I'm here.
Okay,
Well, this is the first time I've been on a committee, so it was a good day. It was a long day of interviews. And yes, all four of these candidates interviewed with us virtually, and they were all very, very talented people and very open and willing to share information with the committee on their work. It's been a while though, trying to recall anything specific. I hadn't really prepared a summary of each, but are there questions for me, or I'm not exactly sure what I should share about each one.
Can I jump in, Brenda?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, maybe I should have notified you in advance.
Yeah.
can you all hear Anne? Is she close enough to this?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, no problem.
Okay,
So at any rate, we have an annual opportunity for artists to apply for the teaching artist roster as well as the touring roster. And the annual deadline is in December. And with the teaching artist roster, these are artists who have experience leading classes and workshops and so forth. And they apply, and we also require them to come in for interviews. In this case, they were online Zoom interviews, but we found that's a really important component. And we had a small number of applicants this year. I think that's in keeping with the world as we're just sort of emerging from the pandemic. Dr. David Klee is a Baltist from Columbus. Josie Langben was a K-12 arts teacher, and now she's gone out on her own as a teaching artist and working freelance artist. Christy Kozmicki is a well-known artist from the Holdridge and Kearney area, and she teaches at UNK. And Dr. Stacy Barelos is a musician, a contemporary musician from Omaha. And they all did a fabulous job. We had a really sound group of applicants this year. We had wonderful discussion together, and I really appreciated you stepping in to help us, Brenda, because you also did the touring roster. And I don't know if Rachel is in this meeting to talk about the touring.
she is.
Okay, she might want to step in and say a few words about the touring roster.
Okay, Joshua, next slide, please. Thank you. Rachel?
Hi, hello everyone. So the touring roster, just a little background on how the touring roster works. Artists are accepted onto the roster, and then the organization hires them and can apply for a grant up to 45% of the artist fee, capped at $2,000. But the applicant needs to live at least, I believe it's 30 miles away from the artist, because the whole idea of the program is to get artists out and across the state. So that's a little bit of why we also, I like to put on there what community they're from. I think that's kind of interesting then to know that. We have one group that is on this slide, McGovern String Band, and they were accepted provisionally. There's a couple of things they need to do. We wanted a little bit nicer photographs from them that they can provide to organizations that hire them in their press materials, which they were very excited about and said, absolutely, we can do that. And so we're waiting for those to come in. They have a deadline of April 1st to get those done. And so that's the only one that was provisional, and the rest that you see on your screen were accepted onto the roster.
Okay, thank you. Megan.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you. So I'm going to present our new Individual Artist Fellowship recipients. They're newly announced as of, I think, the beginning of last week. And we have some really great artists from across the state. So a little bit about the Individual Artist Fellowships. If you're new to the Nebraska Arts Council and may have not heard of it before, it is a program that is funded primarily by the the National Endowment for the Arts. And it's a program that rotates every year between performing arts, literary arts, and visual arts. So this year we focused on performing arts, and beginning last fall, the artists all submitted their work to be adjudicated. And we always hire 3 or 4 out-of-state jurors for this program. So so that it's more equal and nobody is likely to know the artists or be familiar with the artwork in the applications. So that's a little bit of the background, and one of the greatest things that came out of this juror group, you can see here that the categories were music, sound, videography, and screenwriting, choreography, and theater and playwriting. So there was a juror that focused on each of those categories within this juror pool. And all of the jurors commented that it was incredibly difficult to make any decisions because the talent in Nebraska is so good. And so that was really good to hear. And it also made it really difficult for them to make any decisions. It was a great conversation though. So you can see here the awards and how much each awardee is receiving. These artists have all replied enthusiastically and so thankful for their designation. And you can also see here that we have artists in Omaha, Lincoln, and then also in Kearney and Eustis in Greater Nebraska. If you want to go to the next slide, I have another slide here. These were the jurors. In your council packet, you should have more in-depth bios of each of these jurors, along with more in-depth bios of each of the recipients. But I always like to just show who were the jurors for each IAF year, and how each of them comes from different backgrounds, different states, and has different sets of specific background. So it's really, we try to get a breadth of knowledge and general awareness around the arts. And I think this was a really good team of jurors for the program. So that is my presentation. If you have any questions about the program or the recipients, please let me know.
Any questions, anybody? Okay. Thank you, Megan. Okay. Thank you, Joshua.
Okay, contractual partnerships, that's yours.
Okay, we have come to the grants that we will be considering today, and the first one is the data collection project that Cody and Marissa spoke about earlier. And again, the summary is in your packet. And the letter for the memo of understanding was sent out yesterday. And so if there are any other questions about it, we can discuss that now, or we can entertain a motion to approve the grant.
I'll move to approve the grant.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch who that was. Zachary, thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Clark.
Okay. Any discussion?
Any discussion? Okay, go for it.
All right, Hoshar,
Yes.
Botsford,
Yes.
Peak,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Dudley,
Yes.
Fleming,
Yes.
Sorensen,
Yes.
Brinsky,
Yes.
Added,
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Gotcha, thank you. Laughlin,
Yes.
Deeds,
Yes.
Yes.
thank you. Okay, the second, Josh, if you wouldn't mind.
Special grants.
Okay, this was the summary for the other grant. One more, Josh, please. Okay, this is the summary for the grant. If you remember, we were also last fall talking about that we would need to fund the Creative Aging for the Arts program for another year while we were waiting for the next grant from the foundation to be made available. Anne, would you like to very quickly speak about the upcoming grant application and what it will entail?
I sure will. In addition to what you're looking at right now, the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies is partnering with the E.A. Michelson Foundation once again. They funded our pilot program in creative aging last year. We had a $62,000 grant for, I think the $62,000 grant to pilot the program. And they have just introduced a new grant opportunity for the coming year. This one promises to be a lot more competitive. It's available to all the state arts agencies that have creative aging programs. I believe there are 37 or 38 of them in existence, but they've already warned us this is going to be a much more competitive grant program. They plan to award 7 grants to the tune of $100,000 apiece. We will apply. We don't yet know whether we will get a grant, but we're going to go for it. The lion's share of what we will apply for, in addition to additional funding, additional artist residencies, will be training for more artists, training for sponsor organizations who bring in artists, and some marketing and promotion. So we're putting together grant materials now, and that grant will be submitted by mid-April.
So what you're looking at is basically a bridge gap to get us from year one's foundation grant to the next round that unfortunately had a year's period in between. This will keep the program going at a pivotal time when we are building a clientele, as it were. We do consider it a very important part of the lifelong earning effort that we're doing. So we think it's important enough to keep it going. And as luck would have it, we again have those extra funds that we needed to have some use for. So these grants will be granted to NAC Development Corporation so that we can fund this program through it as we did foundation dollars. If there are any questions about it, otherwise we can accept a motion to approve the grant.
Motion, please.
I so moved.
All right, we'll take Amy as moving and Clark as seconding.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All right. Vote, please.
Hofstra?
Yes.
Boxford?
Yes.
Peak?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Dudley?
Yes.
Dunning?
Yes.
Sorensen?
Yes.
Rinsky?
Yes.
Added? Harris? Harris?
Did you say Harris?
Please, yes, Harris?
Yes.
Thank you. Laughlin?
Yes.
Eads?
Yes.
Roush?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, the next one on the agenda then was the grant that we've tabled until we get approval from the State Board of Education. So is Joshua, if you wouldn't mind forwarding a slide. The next piece of business then is, as you remember, the Nebraska Shakespeare Festival, which was one of our basic support grant organizations, ceased operations in October. So we had made a couple of payments on their BSG grant up to that point. Those funds are used for operations, so that was okay. But at that time, we put a cease to any further payments, including the CPAC payment in February. And because you had approved allocation of those funds to that grant, we need to have you vote to basically put the money back into the pot so that we can use it in other grant pools. And that's what this speaks to. So if there are any questions about that, I'd be glad to answer about the Shakespeare Festival or about this grant. Otherwise, we just need approval to put the $24,808 back into the pool of funds.
I move to approve. Okay, thank you, Sarah. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Clark.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay, vote please.
Okay. Hofstra,
Yes.
Botsford,
Yes.
Peak. I can't see. Let me put this back on.
Yes, there we go. Yes.
Thank you. Davis,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Ling,
Yes.
Sorensen,
Yes.
Pinsky,
Yes.
Added,
Yes, I think. I can't hear if it's my name.
oh, I'm sorry, I'll speak up. Harris,
Yes.
Laughlin,
Yes.
Keats.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Mike, it's the darn owl. When you talk, there's a slight delay where like the first half second of what you say doesn't come through to us, or at least to me.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I appreciate the feedback. Never been told I was too quiet before, so.
The next is the floating deadline report.
That's just a report, just to give you a look at where our floating deadline grants are going. If you have any questions or thoughts about them, we'd certainly be able to answer any questions you might have, but otherwise it's just for informational sake. We don't have to vote on that.
Okay, then let's move on to reports and discussion items. The NAC chair report, I would just quickly say it's been rather busy. There have been representing you at representing the council at the Arts Advocacy Day in Ashland with Nebraskans for the Arts, the Nebraska Cultural Endowment meeting. We had confirmation hearings for those of us who have been reappointed. I went down to the Appropriations Committee hearing with some of the staff and Mike and a whole bunch of people on the Creative District position. And Mike and I were at the Nebraska Statehood dinner on Saturday night. So we're trying to keep ourselves out there and be seen. Now I would like to have a motion to vote to go into closed session to discuss the executive director position.
I so moved.
Thank you, Clark. Is there a second?
Second, Laughlin.
Okay. Vote please.
Hofstra,
Yes.
Botsford,
Yes.
Peak,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Dudley,
Yes.
Ling,
Yes.
Sorensen,
Yes.
Pinsky,
Yes.
Added,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Laughlin,
Yes.
Keats,
Yes.
Roush.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Sam, if you would please stop the recording and the live stream.
Thank you. And I don't know how to get that. Okay,
But Sherry, I'm a little confused as to what I'm supposed to do. Am I leaving the Zoom and then joining at another time?
No, I put you all in a room.
I'm
Sam,
assuming
we're all
someone's
in the-
telling me I'm going to be put into a room. Is that correct? Or
Yeah,
no,
no,
not
I'm
Maggie,
staying on.
just the board
I'm staying
member.
on.
no, you
Okay.
shouldn't be on, Maggie. This is executive. I mean, this is
Sam is moving us all of us who are not board members into a room.
Understood. Thank you.
Hey Josh, do you have any report out today?
Not today.
Okay. I just got those numbers for Amy and didn't know if anyone could give them to her.
I'm sorry, were you asking me if I have a board report today?
Yeah, because then I could say you could answer Amy's question, but you don't, so that doesn't help me.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think Amy asked for all the arts ed, how much of our money goes to arts ed. And so I got that number while everybody was talking, so.
Hey, guys, the stream is still going.
Okay.
Just put them in a separate room, just a heads up.
All right. Thank you. Hey Sherry, you're muted.
Got
Okay,
it.
y'all can hear us
Can you
now?
hear us now?
Very good. Okay,
Okay, we need a vote to come back to open session. Would somebody just wave and say they'll do the vote? Okay, Karen, and second Mark. Quickly,
two. Okay, Hofstra,
yes.
Botsford,
Yes.
Peak,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Dudley,
Yes.
Ling,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Rinsky,
Yes.
Pettit,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Coughlin,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Roush.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and now I will entertain a motion for the hiring of the executive director.
I would like to move to hire Mike Markey as the executive director of the Nebraska Arts Council at the salary agreed upon by the board.
That's
Second.
like an
Thank you.
amazing idea. And I like
Second
the
by-
second bid.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion? All right, vote please.
Hofstra,
Yes,
Botsford,
he's probably taken back to his students.
Cheek.
Absolutely.
Botsford was a yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Brian. Davis,
Yes.
Dudley,
Yes.
Dunning,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Rinsky,
Yes.
Pettit,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Coughlin,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Roush.
Yes.
Thank you, and thank you.
I will add one other thing that Mike has made it very clear that he wants to know what the board wants from him and wants to keep in contact. And he has asked that I have at least a monthly meeting with with him to catch up on what's going on. And he is very, very, very interested in how you think about things and what you want and expect. So keep it coming. Okay, let's move on. Congratulations. Let's move on to the executive director's report.
Okay, Joshua, if you would please. Thank you. Okay. There is a lot to talk about, and I will try to go through it quickly, but as you know, because of the leadership change, there have been a lot of things that have sort of been waiting. And so now we're moving forward, and the first thing that I would like to do is take this opportunity to thank you very much, the council, for your vote of trust in leading this group. The selection committee, Sherry, certainly for putting that together and leading that group of people and the work that they did. I was impressed with every communication that I had with them, and I know that the other candidates must have felt the same way, that it was done with the utmost professionalism, and I think it looked good upon the agency. And finally, I want to thank the staff for putting up with me and the process, and for keeping the secret for so long, so that comes to an end today. That's a blessed relief. Okay, so first thing on there then obviously is the agency staffing. Just to give you an update as to where we are, obviously the first step will be to hire a deputy director, and we have the paperwork all set to go. And though we've been looking informally for a while, we will start that formal process and hope to have some candidates to look at within the next month. It will not be an easy one. So we'll have to take some time to make sure that we get as many good candidates as possible. If you know anybody that you think would be a good candidate, knowledge of accounting, knowledge of finance, familiarity with the state and the state system or government and government regulations, compliance officer, that type of person, please don't hesitate to give me a call or inform them that we will be looking for somebody. We'll want to make a very good selection. And along those lines, the other thing that I wanted to mention was the legislative update, primarily because one of the things that we were looking for was an additional staff position. And if I could at this time, I wanted to introduce you to the person that we have been working with on a temporary basis. Laura Marsh, if you wouldn't mind popping in real quickly, I wanted everybody to meet you and to know that Laura has been working hand in hand with Rachel since the beginning of the year. Laura comes to us from the Nebraska Arts Council, or Nebraska Shakespeare Festival, where I worked with her for a number of years. And she is still helping that organization clear out its offices, as it were. But she comes to us with a great deal of experience, and should we be lucky enough to get that position, she would be our prime candidate to come on to staff. To that end, I wanted to let you know that as was mentioned by Sherry earlier, we did go down and testify to the Appropriations Committee for our budget, and the results of that were mixed. The budget received a 2% increase, as did every other state agency. The other piece of good news is that the annual transfer is looking good to the CPEF fund, and that the annual appropriation to the creative districts was renewed, that $1 million. So that program looks good going forward. The only downside to the hearing was that the governor and both the governor and the Appropriations Committee did not see fit to include that new staff position in our budget request, in their recommendation of our budget request. So there have been a flurry of activity along that line. I've met with 2 or 3 different state senators now looking for support for that position. Then, as Sherry mentioned, we also had a number of people come down and speak on behalf of the Creative Districts program, as well as the agency budget. And then we've also had 8 more people who wrote in written comments on behalf of the agency and the Creative District program. So I think we've made an impression. At the hearing, Senator Anna Wishart requested 2 different things. Wanted to know, one, if we had ever put this into why we didn't put this into a request when the program was first brought forward. And I explained, as did the legislative assistant, that the way the program came about, it came about in stages, and the original stage didn't look like it would need a staffing update. And it wasn't until the $1 million was added at the last minute in 2021 that the need for an additional staff position became readily apparent. And of course, there was no fiscal note, there was no request for information about an additional staff position at that time. So that this was the first opportunity to be able to say, this program is important enough and it is such a size that it really requires staff position. And I think that the Appropriations Committee probably agrees with us about after the argument we put forward. Amy, as I mentioned, Anna Wishart, as I mentioned, requested also to know if we had looked at additional sources of funding. In other words, the chances of the appropriation being increased may not be very strong, but the question that I asked back to her was, so if we were to find the funding necessary, you would be amenable to the idea of increasing the PSL as needed. PSL is the permission to spend money on salary, which in essence would give permission to hire the additional person. She wanted a report on what that would, what our other options would be in terms of raising the funds. I had a flurry of activity with a number of different people, and we put forward a proposal that would transfer a portion of the grant funds from the granting program to program 326 to be able to hire that person. This was after consultation with a number of people, including Suzanne, who I'll give a great assist to, helping to formulate with her experience with the legislature, just what would fly and how to make the proposal to the senator and how to follow up on it, and which I've done. I followed up with phone calls. Suzanne was also lucky enough to run into the senator at the affair Saturday night, and her response to Suzanne was, "I got the paperwork, we'll take care of it." That was a quote. So we will follow up on that and see if that means that they will positively look to change the language in our appropriations so that we can do what we talked about doing and be able to hire the position. More on that to and Brian is calling me. Hold on 1 second, please. Brian, yes? All right. Okay, thank you. Sam, if you wouldn't mind letting Brian Botsford back into the room. Any questions about that so far? This is a midterm report at best right now, but signs look good, and I think we've got the senator on our side, and that's a positive sign as we could hope for at this time. Okay. If not, I'll go forward and mention the next thing there is the 50th anniversary. And it is. And so along those lines, we've been taking a number of steps. The first of all is that you can see our 50th anniversary there in the middle of the slide, and our own Joshua Brown put that together for us to help us celebrate graphic display throughout the year. The other things that we will be doing is we will be putting together a video for later on in the year with interviews from past chairmen, past council members, past artists across the state as sort of a celebration of the 50 years. We'll be doing that throughout the summer, and I'll mention more about that later on. In just a moment, I will show you a brief little video that we put together here within the staff, as well as our friends with On Pixel, as sort of a kickoff to our anniversary year. While I've got this slide up, though, I wanted to mention one other thing, and that picture that you see on the right-hand side there, the certification ceremony at Brownville Creative Districts. Obviously, Creative Districts is going to be a large part of what we do, not only this coming year, but for many years to come. I wanted to bring your attention to this because two things. One, the gentleman in the middle with the gray suit on is Steve Worth, and he was one of the people that came down and testified for us at the Appropriations Committee. Wonderful spokesperson on behalf of the Creative Districts. Did a wonderful, impressive presentation to the Appropriations Committee. Very thankful for him. And if you notice the person to his right, that is Senator Slammer from that district, who I think, if I'm relating this correctly, Rachel, was not in favor of the program when she walked in, but was very supportive of the whole idea of the program by the time she walked out. So I think that it was a very good meeting. And if you've been following the bills at all, you'll see that she has been putting forward a number of bills for community betterment and development. So I think that she could be actually somebody who might be an advocate and a partner in this going forward. So we'll nurture that relationship as well. Okay. And please, again, stop me anywhere along the line. Joshua, if you wouldn't mind forwarding the slide, though. And this is the video that was put together. Oh, we don't have sound though, Josh. Would you mind starting it over again with the sound? Or is that something I have to do? Sam, is that something I have to do to have sound? All right.
Hey, I'm working on it. One moment. Thank you.
Okay. Tell you what, can we come back to it, Joshua?
No, Sam's got it.
Sam's got it. All right. 1 second, please.
All right.
No, no sound.
For 50 years, we have supported the state of Nebraska.
It's there, but it's very soft.
Grants.
That was sound.
I think we got it.
Yeah, start at the beginning.
The Nebraska Arts Council. For 50 years, we have supported the state of Nebraska through the arts with grants and services to artists, organizations, and communities. The beginnings of the Nebraska Arts Council can be found in efforts dating back to the 1960s, but the agency was officially formed by the state legislature in 1973 with the passing of Legislative Bill 121. While our staff, image, and even office have changed over the years, our commitment to serve the people of Nebraska remains the same: to promote, cultivate, and sustain the arts for the people of Nebraska. For 50 years, we have been a catalyst for communities to enjoy cultural and educational resources, awarding over $70 million to support the work of more than 36,000 artists and arts organizations in every county in the state. Now we embrace the future with 2 new exciting programs: Nebraska Creative Districts and Creative Aging for the Arts, programs that promise to add economic growth and lifelong learning opportunities for many years to come. So join us this year as we celebrate 50 years of the Nebraska Arts Council. And remember, as always, say yes to the arts. The
That's
Nebraska.
it. That's it. Again, my thanks to Sam for putting that together with our friends from On Pixel, Matt Ross and Chad. Gosh, Chad said his name, but that was put together in less than a week. I think it turned out pretty well, and we'll be developing that into a longer one again that we'll be using later on this year as we celebrate our 50th anniversary. Okay. All right. Thank you. And the next thing to report upon is when we'll be using that. One more. There we go. Our 50th anniversary, we will be celebrating as part of the Nebraska State Arts Awards, formerly known as the Governor's Arts Awards. We will be holding those on Thursday, October 19th at the Sheldon Art Museum. And the reception will be to follow at the Lead Center right next door in the Lead Commons. If you remember, this is the first time that we'll be doing the awards since 2020, that we took a little hiatus from it so that we could reevaluate its purpose and some of the awards as well as the name. And the name that we have landed upon is the State Arts Awards. We will be opening up nominations for the awards beginning May 1st, and we'll take award nominations for a couple of months. And then over the summer, we'll be impaneling a group of folks to go over the awards and come up with the selections for the awardees. And then we will have video interviews done of them again in the late fall. And in time so that we can have the presentation in October. And then you see there the different categories. Access to the arts is a little broader this time. It involves not just people who are putting forward accessibility programs, but also who are investing themselves in the DEI movement as well. And so that a little broader reach this time. Outstanding artists, as always, organizational achievement, excellence in the arts, those are all very standard. Heritage Awards is the, again, based upon cultural achievement, or we are also including folk and traditional arts as well in that as well. Basically anything that celebrates specific cultures and music or the arts of any group. We'll keep the name the Heritage Award though. Department in the Arts recognizes individuals, businesses, that sort of thing that are very supportive as patrons of the arts. And then the Leadership of the Arts is one that we used to have as an emerging leader, but we felt that we should not just recognize emerging leaders, but basically people in leadership roles in organizations or in causes that we wanted to call attention to and hold up as models for the rest of us, which again is one of the primary purposes of this, is to show what's possible in terms of supporting the arts throughout the state. That is the plan for the State Arts Awards. Any questions or comments?
I'm very glad that this is happening. Really happy to see this. Mike, is there a place online? I haven't dug around since it wasn't happening. Is there a place online that has previous award winners listed?
I believe we do. If one of the staff people knows for sure, there should be a place on there that has, and I don't know if we've changed the name of it yet, though. It may still say Governor's Arts Awards, but on there speaks about the event and the previous winners.
Okay, yeah, I'll dig around.
But we'll certainly be updating all that.
Mike?
Yes.
Are organizations or people ever awarded more than once?
It has happened. Obviously, we like to share the award throughout the state, but it has happened, especially if it's been a while or there's been a real change in direction or something like that. There we go. Megan is sharing for you in the chat down there where you can reach that list. So yes. And as mentioned there, one of the first things that we'll be doing is we'll be asking everybody, including the council, if you have any suggestions for anybody within these categories. And we'll certainly be willing, if you have somebody and you're not quite sure where they would fit in, we'll certainly work with you. What we tend to do is once a name is nominated, either by staff or council or somebody like that, we'll find a champion for them who will put the actual application in so that they can be considered. It's not a difficult application process, but it does include letters of support as well as a brief history or bio of the person to explain why they should be considered for the award. Okay, and all that information will be coming up. We are just, as you can imagine, a lot of things again have been in hold, but we are just starting to really work on the details of these projects. Okay. Any other questions about that? Yes.
Can I just say, that's a really handsome guy in that picture right there. and if you're looking at my screen, this painting right up above my shoulder I'm pointing to is in my office on the wall from that day.
Nice.
and well deserved. And
it was a
thank you
great
for
day.
allowing me.
It's a good event.
Very good. Thank you for allowing me to share your photo. Okay. Anything else about the State Arts Awards? If not, Josh, if you wouldn't mind forwarding. Then the other thing that we'll be doing is, if you remember, we put on hold the strategic planning process until we had new leadership. And now that we're going to be moving forward, this is our tentative plan as to how we will have a new strategic plan to be presented to you for approval at this time next year. We will begin with a staff planning session at the end of this month where we'll sit down and evaluate exactly what it is we hope to accomplish and how we'll go about doing it. And then these are some of the things that we have used in the past and or thought that would be useful for this period. We will do a series of listening forums throughout the spring and the summer where we visit communities And we sit down and just open it up to anybody who wants to attend. We will formulate some standard questions so that we have a baseline of responses from people. We'll also do some focus groups where we of different people groups that we want to make sure that we get responses from, and we'll do that throughout the period. We'll also, as we usually do, put together a constituent survey that we send out and make available to people so that they can chime in as to what they feel the role of the Arts Council should be going forward. Then we'll take all that information at the end of the summer. We have a staff retreat where we discuss what we learned, and we put together what we want to say in our strategic plan based upon that. In September, we'll bring that to you guys and we'll tell you what we think we found out and get your input as to important information that comes out of that. Then we'll put together a draft plan between that time and the December meeting, and we'll share that again with you where we stand at that time. We'll take whatever input that we have from the council, we'll feed that into the process, and we'll put it out for public input to get some feedback as we've done in the past. And then we'll take all of that, we'll put a final draft together to present to this council for final approval this time next year. And then it will be published, and not only in print, but also on the website and shared throughout. And then that will be our game plan going forward. Any questions about that? The final part of this, that not final part, but the initial part of this then is the final thing that I'll mention. And that is that, as I said, a lot of this is getting feedback from the communities, and we'll do a lot of that during our Office on Wheels program this summer. And we'll be beginning that in earnest, probably in April, actually. There'll be specific communities that we'll go to because we have creative districts, or because they're just communities that we want to hear from. And as part of that, we will do listing forms, and it'll also be an opportunity to introduce the new executive director as well, so that we'll have gatherings where an opportunity to do that. And I believe Sherry has said that she will come along to some of those. So we'll be letting you know what dates and areas that those are. And if you have any input as to where you think we should be going throughout the state, again, I'd love to have your feedback on that as well. But that's the plan, and we'll be letting you know more about that as it develops. That is my report, unless anybody has any questions.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Hearing no questions, let's go on to program reports. Anne, you're first up with Poetry Out Loud and the Creative Aging Program.
Yeah, Josh, would you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, very briefly, Poetry Out Loud is something our agency has been involved in now for something like 17 or 18 years. It's run by the National Endowment for the Arts and the Poetry Foundation. It is a poetry recitation program, for those of you who are not familiar with it. And we will have our state finals live and in person at the Sheldon Museum of Art this Sunday. So everybody's welcome. Our state poet, Matt Mason, is the most gregarious MC imaginable. He'll be working with us again. We also will have music by classical guitarist Daniel Martinez and Andean flute player Oscar Rios Coheria from Lincoln. So it should be a really nice event, a lot of fun. Watch the kids perform. 1 o'clock on Sunday, and then the state champ gets to go to Washington, D.C. and compete for about $20,000 in prizes at nationals. Last year, by the way, our state champ wound up being in the top 9 finalists nationally and won some wonderful prizes. But unfortunately, last year it was all online. This year, we're finally doing things back in person. So we're really looking forward to that. And you can go to the next slide, Josh. We've talked already a little bit about the Creative Aging program, Creative Aging Arts program that was just piloted last year. And we've really gotten into the swing of things this year. We've had artists go through training with a nationally recognized organization called Lifetime Arts that specializes in work with older adults. We were at 28 artist residencies when I made this slide. I think we're at 30 now, with quite a few more grant applications in the hopper that Joshua is dutifully managing his way through. So we're really pleased to see a wide array of organizations taking advantage. We're building some new relationships with organizations that we haven't worked with as much, in particular with libraries. We met with the regional library directors and the Nebraska Library Commissioner, Rod Wagner, about a month ago. And we'll be doing a webinar for librarians across the state in April. And then there will be a workshop with the Southeast Library System later in the spring. So we're excited about those. We're working with some of our arts nonprofits, and we're also working with specific nonprofits such as nonprofit retirement centers or local government entities, offices on aging. So, and as I discussed earlier, we're applying for a new grant from NASA. So everybody send your good wishes, because this one promises to be a very competitive grant, but we're going to go for it and see what happens. And that's where things stand right now. Oh, the picture you're seeing, by the way, is a theater artist from Omaha, D. Kevin Williams, well known in the Omaha metro area. He was invited to the Palisade Library and spent a week in way west Nebraska in Palisade. And those librarians talk to one another. He's heading up to Verdigris next month to the Verdigris Library for another residency. So that's what I have to share right now. Any questions?
Good, thank you very much. That's exciting. Rachel, Creative Districts.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to give you some highlights because I know we're getting close to time, and I don't want you to run over. You'll see on the map, we have some updates here with some new LOIs from Nebraska City, from Potter, which is a very small community out by Kimball. Workbooks we have received from York. Thank you, Clark, who I know is involved in that. And we have two communities that are submitting their strategic plan, which is that last piece that they need to do to become certified. And they are getting those in hopefully this week. There's just one or two things that they need to get in there. So we should see 2 more certified districts in the next couple of weeks, and we'll work with them and announce it on social media and in our newsletter when we have those up and ready. And that is Red Cloud and Sydney are both almost there, almost. So we should see them pretty soon. As far as the development grant, Mike mentioned earlier, of the certified districts that you see on your screen, we have seen development grants from all of them except for COSAT. And I am actually out on the road, so Brian may actually recognize this office. Crane River was nice enough to let me borrow their space today. I was out yesterday doing a site visit in Ogallala, and then I stopped in COSAT and met with their city administrator and talked through the development grant and kind of what they plan on doing and kind of encouraging them to get that application in as soon as they can. So we should see that soon, but we have some that haven't been reviewed and scored yet, but they're in. So we've seen something from everybody except for COSAT at this point. One thing that we're doing, we've allowed them to submit 2 because we have those 2 years of appropriation and we want to spend that money. We don't want to have to send it back. So we're allowing them to do to this cycle. It'll be the only time it ever happens, and I have told them that. So some other things that are happening next year, Department of Economic Development has a special grant program called CCCFF for short. And next year it will be only for creative districts. So currently I am reviewing the applications for this year so that I understand the process and how that works, so I can best help our creative districts. And I have learned a lot, including our grant system is so much more user-friendly. So I have learned what not to do in some cases. But it's been a really great experience, and that panel is on Thursday. So I'm excited to hear that conversation and how that works. The other thing is that there's been a lot of conferences that I've been a part of. Tomorrow, one reason I'm in Kearney is there is a planning and zoning conference that I am a part of, and will be presenting in the morning about creative districts along with Olson Associates. So it's a really exciting time. We're getting the word out there about creative districts and getting more interest and getting more communities involved.
Rachel, is it 32 that we're at now that have shown somewhere on that level?
Yeah, we have 32 communities who are in the process of some sort. They've at least submitted a letter of interest. We have a couple of others who have called and kind of talked through it. I have more phone calls to return once this meeting is done. So we are, I'm going to be talking to Holdridge is one of them that's interested, South Sioux City, Cambridge, and they're just kind of learning more about what the process is and what it involves.
Want to let you all know the power of a graphic. Lynn Rex, who is the head of the League of Nebraska Municipalities and a real force. The League of Nebraska Municipalities is a resource group for cities throughout the state, large and small, but primarily focusing on, I think, good for small districts. And they are keenly interested in finding resources for those communities. Lynn was rather against our program and had actually taken some steps in some legislation to seize some of the funding that we had. She saw this chart. I think it helped that Rita Stenner was the one who showed it to her, but she saw this chart and she saw the popularity and the potential of the program and turned on a dime and called me the last Sunday. And we spent 2 different phone calls and about 2 hours on the phone talking about the program. And she is, I think, probably now our greatest advocate. She came down, testified on behalf of the agency, and has been working with me and some other folks to really work behind the scenes to try to get support for the program, for our funding, try to change some of the legislation so that we can more readily spend the funds and get them out into the field. I think she's going to be a great ally as well as the league going forward. So kudos to Rachel and her work and to this particular chart.
Yeah, thanks for all your help, Rachel.
Rachel, I don't remember what it's called, but how many of these organizations have asked for that additional funding that you had available for organization?
So 5 out of the 6 have submitted that development grant. That last one is COZAD, and that was the stop that I made yesterday and met with them one-on-one.
I'm not sure if I'm asking correctly. There was some sort of additional funding for just leadership if they didn't have it earlier.
Oh, are you talking about the capacity grant?
Yes, that's what it's called. Yeah. How many have applied for that?
That is a great question. So the capacity grant was actually private funds from the Kiewit Foundation that we received from them. We got $20,000 to help with that. And on the chart, I don't remember right off the top of my head how many, but if you look at the map, the ones with the little asterisks, those are the ones that received a capacity grant. We have expended all of those funds. I met with Kiewit to see if they would like to continue. And they said, we'd kind of like to see what projects come out of this process and what community led projects look like in this process. So it's not a no, but it's not a yes. So we're going to kind of wait and see. We're keeping that conversation going. They're actually going to be, Paul is going to be a panelist for us in the next review. So we're keeping them involved in the process.
Okay.
Okay, moving on then, Stephanie for folk and traditional arts. Thanks, Rachel.
Hi, everyone. So I will just give you a few quick updates on what is going on with the folk and traditional arts program and what is happening in the next couple months. So these are not in order of importance. The first is the National Endowment for the Arts Heritage Fellowships. Those applications are due usually in May. They haven't posted the specific due date yet, but we do plan to put forward a nomination. It's a rather robust application process. And so we are going to make some plans surrounding that and identify an artist and prepare materials for it. So that is the first update. And the second is that we have now a NAC quarterly newsletter for folk and traditional arts. And so the goal of this is to really inform, and it's really specifically geared towards folk and traditional artists and organizations that work with this kind of programming, but it can also expand too. But so this is really about what kind of opportunities and events are around the state, as well as for folk and traditional artists who may be looking for local and regional and national opportunities. So for instance, in March 15th, the Native Arts and Culture Foundation out of Washington State has a $10,000 grant award for artists, Indigenous artists. So just letting folks know about some of those things around the state. The next should come out in May, and I'm hoping to have a nice list of the county fairs to tell people about where there's some good folk and traditional arts happening. The last update is regarding our applications. So our set deadline applications are coming up on the 15th. And we've added a question to this, essentially just asking applicants if any component of their project includes folk and traditional arts. And so they just select yes or no. So there's not any kind of intense writing they have to do about it. But that will allow us to pull data that we can use in a number of ways. For instance, in our National Endowment for the Arts reports on folk and traditional arts, Office on Wheels planning, and identifying specific traditions that are happening within the state. On your screen, an example of a grant that we've just processed and awarded is for a quilt exhibit at Gallery 1516 in Omaha. And they put this on in coordination with the Omaha Modern Quilt Guild and the International Quilt Center out of Lincoln. And so having that application question is really going to streamline things and keep me from having to kind of dig to find these gems and jewels. And what you're looking at here is a quilt. So quite beautiful work there. So that's all I have for you. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear them.
Okay, thanks, Steph. Let's move on then. Megan, public art projects.
Right. So I have a number of 1% for art projects going on right now, and even some non-1% projects for various organizations. But I really wanted to share with you this project, formerly known as the Mabel Lee Hall, now the Carolyn Pope Edwards Hall. And this project has been going on for some time. I think maybe some of you might even remember it from a few years ago when I first started it. So the first piece to go in was the piece by Thurman Statham, and the building had an opening where there were probably hundreds of people there, and it was a huge celebration. And this massive glass mural was the backdrop for the opening event, and it was just fabulous. Thurman Statham was there. He is an Omaha artist, so he drove down to join the opening, and he got to speak with a lot of people, which I think everyone enjoyed that. The other two pieces that you see here, one of them is by an artist, James Den. It's the large piece in the courtyard out in front of the building. And then the third piece is hanging above those chairs. That's just one element of that piece by the Aranda Lash group. They work with the artist Harold Du Johnson, who is a basket weaver from one of the southwestern states, and he's a traditional basket weaver. So this public art piece is a modern take on basket weaving, and I love this collection of artwork, and it turned out so well, and there's so many nice intersections between all three of the pieces. But I especially wanted to share with you this project. If you remember, I think this was one of the last projects, or maybe even the impetus before we changed the budget verification form and it was approved by the council, that an agency can't select more than one site without accruing additional fees. And those fees go to my time and also for the maintenance fund. So by adding that to the budget verification form, we're now accruing a little bit more money when buildings decide to have these multiple projects within one main project. And it's been working really well. It's been allowing me to have those conversations with a little bit more weight about how to pay artists for their time and for their expertise too, and being able to really allow an artist to be paid what they should be getting. With that all said, this is a really excellent project. And if you're on the UNL campus, I would highly suggest you stop by the UNL Carolyn Pope Edwards Hall and see these pieces. One little final note, I don't know if you ended up going, Alec, but on my way back to my car after the opening reception, Alec was on the sidewalk with a coworker, and it was just it was a great run-in and all sorts of activity on the UNL campus. Oh, you did check it out. That's great. Okay, and that's the only piece that I was going to share with you, but I'd be happy to talk more about it or answer any other questions.
Any questions? Thank you, Megan. Thank you very much. Thank you, board. We are about 10 minutes over, and I apologize. Is there any other business?
If I can just take this opportunity to mention one thing that I had mentioned about grants, especially for the newer members. One of the things that we ask of the council members are to serve on grant panels, and they'll be coming up this spring. We will be sending around a survey with the dates and asking if you have an interest and availability to serve on any of those grant panels. So be looking for that. Also, just real quickly, the calendar there with the remainder of the dates, you'll note that there is one correction. It was June 12th, not October 10th. Those are the dates for the remainder of the board meetings. September 12th. And as you note there, we will be sending out calendar invites so that you have those automatically on your calendar right after this meeting. Right? Finally, then, if you notice, the September meeting is to be determined. We usually do the June meeting here in the offices, and then the other in-person meeting, we tend to go out into the field someplace. So if we are open to any suggestions, if anybody has any favorite venues they'd like us to visit for that council meeting in September. That's it.
Any other questions or comments before we adjourn?
Sorry,
Okay,
I ducked out for a few minutes. I was running across central London with my laptop, finding the next library that was open.
Glad you made it back.
Okay, then I need a vote, a motion to adjourn. Somebody wave.
Mark.
Okay, Mark, and then Karen second. Okay, vote please.
Hofstra.
Yes.
Botsford.
Yes.
Peak.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Dudley.
Yes.
Dunning.
Yes.
Warrenson.
Yes.
Rinsky.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Coughlin.
Yes.
Dietz.
Yes.
Roush.
Yes.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everyone.